Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Welcome to the Single Tracks Podcast. I'm Leah Barber, and today I have a special episode with professional mountain bike racer and Olympian Chloe Woodruff. Chloe Woodruff is from Prescott, Arizona, and owns and rides for the Stans Pivot Pro team presented by Maxxis. She has raced the cross-country discipline in 10 world championship teams as a junior, under-23 athlete, and an elite racer. She was also one of just 2 women mountain bike racers who represented the United States in the 2016 Rio Olympics. I met up with Chloe in Sedona at Rome Bike Fest, a women's mountain bike festival, to talk about racing, the Olympics, and learn her realistic approach to goal setting. Chloe, how did you get started mountain biking?
Well, that was many, many years ago at this point.
But you look so young. It couldn't have been that long.
Thank you. Back, in like 1999, maybe? Okay. So I was first introduced to mountain biking in middle school. My 7th grade teacher's husband, his name's Leonard Zinn. He works for Velo News, and he organized a class trip to Moab, Utah. So actually one of my first mountain biking experiences was in Moab, which is a pretty
That's awesome. That sounds like an awesome field trip.
Yeah. And as a class assignment afterwards, I had to write a personal narrative about the experience, and I still have that. So
wow, that's like the first ever blog.
Yeah, I think it ended with mountain biking is a sport I want to get better at. So it's like the story of my life. But introduced to mountain biking in middle school. I was a very shy kid. Like, I think socially I had a hard time kind of integrating in school, and mountain biking just was like this activity that kind of let me, it was just this like vehicle that let me interact with other kids. And I got, I started to build confidence on the bike, and I used to ride my bike to school too. So I was relatively fit, and I enjoyed like trying to keep up with the boys and kind of competing with my sister. So yeah, it was just, it went from there. I had a lot of adults and people just kind of nurtured that interest. Like, one thing you learn in the sport is like how passionate people are about sharing, the experience of mountain biking. And I certainly was a beneficiary of that. Like, I had a lot of just people, helping me find my first bike and, like connecting me with other young girls to ride. And it went from there. I've been mountain biking ever since.
Cool. That's awesome because, it's like just now we're starting to see all these kind of ways to get kids and the youth involved, like with NICA and Little Bellas and stuff like that. But it's awesome that you kind of found that early on, found the people that were real fanatics about mountain biking.
Yeah, I did grow up in Boulder, Colorado. So there are a lot of, fanatics about bikes in that town. But yeah, now the amazing thing is we didn't have NICA back then. So the experiences and opportunities for kind of entering the sport now there's so many more of them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, even without NICA, you still raced in high school, right?
I did. Yeah. Yep. I did my first race, I think, as a sophomore in high school. I started traveling like around the country really just a couple years later. And, it took off from there. Like, I raced my first world championships in 2004 as a junior.
Oh, wow.
And then I kept racing through college, and it's been 14 years.
Wow. And so, I don't think I know you said earlier, I couldn't even count. How many world championship titles have you gone for?
Oh, title 0.
0. Oh. All right.
But it's fine. It's all like the experience and the process. And I've competed in 10 I've been named to 10 world championship teams, which is pretty cool. So, I've raced as both a junior, under 23, and elite racer at Worlds. I think I'm one of the only women to have raced Worlds through all those different age brackets.
And was it all cross country?
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. And recently, well, 2016, that's still pretty recent. You went to the Olympics for cross country mountain biking, right? Like
yeah.
that's pretty awesome. Was that a childhood dream of yours, or did you ever during your early career racing think, okay, I'm going to go out for the Olympics one day?
Well, my mom actually has kind of a funny story about this because as a child, I just was a dabbler. Like I wasn't really into any specific sport, but I dabbled in like gymnastics, and I remember I was always excited to watch the gymnastics at the Olympics. And I remember for a while I was telling my mom, I want to go to the Olympics in gymnastics. And then, of course, for the Olympics, they showed a program about like training regimen and like, these young girls had to leave home and like train full time. And I remember telling my mom says that I told her like, never mind. I don't think I want to do that. That sounds really hard.
Yeah. Where's the fun in
yeah,
that?
I actually, it was always really hard. I never really saw myself going to the Olympics. I knew there was potentially a pathway, but I am pretty realistic in the way I go about thinking about myself in the sport. And like, I think that dream was like kind of slowly built as I like grew close, as I took one step closer. I didn't enter the sport of mountain biking like with this dream to go to the Olympics. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like there's mountain biking in the Olympics, but that was not a motivating factor for a really long time. And it wasn't until I was named to the 2012 Olympic long team, which is kind of the equivalent of going to the Olympic trials in other sports. Okay. That, I started to think about it and it was like, oh, wow, like maybe this could be a possibility. Like what might it take? And, and my husband and I, like we, after that 2012 experience, we did, we started to like think about it and plan.
Awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, 4 years of planning and the training, that's still, that's still a lot of dedication to get to the Olympics, because you probably didn't even know in 2012, like whether or not you were going to be in it. Like there was still so many other, I'm sure, little goals along the way, big goals along the way, like that you had to really commit to for that long amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I it seemed like such a long shot too. I mean, it really wasn't until 2016 and until really the first World Cup qualifier we had that I truly started to believe that, hey, maybe I could do it. The goals that we had were very kind of process driven. Like I wanted to be one of the top ranked U.S. riders, which meant I wanted to have a little bit of consistency on the World Cup calendar. I really wanted to practice kind of like peaking for a one-day event because I'm like, well, if you go to the Olympics, you have to be able to show up on one day in like the best condition of your life.
Wow.
And that's something you have to like practice
my gosh,
for.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. But that's like kind of what we do through training is you identify what races are important and you try to, be your best for that day. And so we tried to do that 2015 and then again 2016 at the first World Cup. That was like a crazy experience because I actually showed up in Australia flew down there with 2 bikes and neither of them showed up. So I showed up, we left on Sunday, arrived Monday. The first World Cup was Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember. And my bikes didn't show up. Not a big deal. Sometimes they come on the next flight. Next day, still calling, and they're like, well, sometimes things get like lost at LAX custom, like no word of my bikes. Day 2 goes by, like the first Olympic qualification race, and like my bikes are not there. Our national team coach was driving like 30, 40 minutes to the airport every day to like talk to the baggage guys. He knew them by name. Day 3 went by, like no bikes. Meanwhile, Kate Courtney, you guys probably have heard her name by now, current mountain bike world champion. She had actually loaned me her bike, so I was like, I got out for a spin. I wasn't riding the course, but I was out for a spin and like got some efforts in. And during this time, I went through this whole like, well, you know, I guess this race is over with, like, you know. So I kind of went through this process of like just grief and acceptance. And day before the race, my bikes show up. We got them built up, and I was able to get in my pre-ride. I also felt like I was coming down with a cold. Kind of was really ambivalent about the whole thing at that point, and ended up having the race of my life the next day. So yeah, like I had my best World Cup result. And it's funny because like it probably wouldn't have happened had I not been in that like I don't even care headspace anymore. So it was weird how these like this crazy disruption turned out to be an incredible gift.
Got you off balance.
Yeah.
To just reboot.
Yeah. So, you know, and it wasn't like, I mean, I rode most of the day in the top 10. I nursed a flat for like the last lap of the race, and I ended up finishing 12th. But I was a top American that day. And in the end, you know, there's still 2 months of qualification left, and I kind of like limped through the rest of it. But I was the only rider, like Leah Davison, one rider had her spot secured, but for that second place, I was the only one of the three of us that were in contention who really had like a career ride in one of the qualification races. So that's what earned me a spot on the Olympic team. So I did exceed my goals. Like I made it to the Olympics.
So would you think about doing it again, going for 2020? Is that something you're thinking about?
Absolutely. And, you know, in the same kind of strain, like in 2016, the U.S. team could send a maximum of 2 racers. And in 2020, the U.S. team could potentially send 3. And it has everything to do with how competitive the U.S. women are on the World Cup series. And that in and of itself is an incredibly motivating thing. Like, you know, we could potentially send 3 women to race at the Olympics in mountain biking. Just with the resurgence of like NICA, there's just like a lot of energy in the sport. And so that's an incredibly motivating thing. Like, if we could send 3 women, that just would, that's definitely something I'm working towards.
Awesome. And so I guess just like 2016, you probably have some big races, big events kind of coming up that you need to do or need to have certain goals for before you get to the Olympics. So what are those? What do you have? Or what do you have in the near future that you're trying to focus on?
I really focus on our World Cup calendar. So we have 6 races each year, and most of them are in Europe. And it's really, you know, it's the best women racers in the world. And the courses are really pretty technical. We race for like an hour to an hour and a half in length. And those, like I've been working at kind of just getting a little bit better each year on that World Cup circuit. And last year I definitely had a little bit of a breakthrough. I had consistency. I raced in the top 15 at every one except a single one. Yeah.
Yay.
So that was a pretty big jump for me, and I'm looking at just continuing to make progress on that level.
Cool. And so you had mentioned, you know, the courses are getting way more technical, and you know, if you've seen any of the deep rocks and logs all over the course, not like what cross country was in the 90s when you started. So like, what have you changed like in your own?
Yeah, a lot more time on my mountain bike, and I'm really fortunate. I race for Pivot, so I really feel like I'm on the absolute best piece of equipment I can be. I race with a Fox transfer dropper post, and I typically race on the Mach 4 Carbon by Pivot, which is just such a versatile cross-country race bike. So, you know, I think it's just been a lot of skill-specific training. I'm very fortunate. I live in Prescott, Arizona, where I have a ton of trail options near where I live. I'm an hour from Sedona, where we are now. So
yeah, it's got a lot of technical practice out here, apparently.
So it's just been a lot more time on my mountain bike, and also, you know, just building confidence, like learning about my equipment. Like I've changed a lot, like in the last 3 to 4 years. Like I used to kind of be really not able to hang on a lot of the technical stuff. Like I'd take a lot of beelines. I first put a dropper post on my bike in 2013 just to start building confidence. And now it's really fun because I can, I'm pretty confident on a lot of the technical stuff. I still have to work I'm still a fairly timid racer at times.
That surprises me.
I have a bit of I'm not always a very bold person, but I love the techie stuff, so it's fun to work on.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yep. See, who would have thought you'd be saying that at the beginning? So, well, tell me a little bit more kind of about the training. I'm so curious because riding the bike it's fun, but it's like hard work too. Surely you do other stuff. Like, do you ride on a road bike or do you cross train at all?
Yeah, I would say my time actually is spent about, maybe 60% on the road and 40% on the mountain bike. I call my road bike my work bike. It's actually a pivot vault, so it's technically a gravel bike.
Because I was going to say, I didn't even know
Pivot
Pivot
be comfortable,
had road bikes.
Yeah, it's my work bike. Like we've got great, dirt roads to go ride on. But you can be a lot more efficient with just getting aerobic work in, with kind of interval workouts. And then the time on my mountain bike is time for riding, where you can just be a little bit more efficient. And I don't do as much specific workouts on my mountain bike, but I will, maybe go out with certain skills in mind to work on or, just just have fun. Just have fun. I do have fun mountain biking. Yeah, but it's about 60-40, the division of time. And then I also have been incorporating more time in the gym in kind of during the non-racing season in the winter. So this last season, I was in the gym 3 days a week from, October through February. And I think that's just helped me become a more resilient athlete.
Yeah, the gym is tough, right? I mean, especially when you're in a sport like cycling where you're moving forward and you're going somewhere, and then you have to go in the gym and look at yourself and lift weight or just kind of be a little static. Is that fun for you? Or what kind of fun workouts do you like to do in the gym? We're always looking for ways to make it more fun because you're gotta work on the core. But no one wants to do sit-ups and boring stuff like that. So yeah, give me your funnest workout, your funnest gym. I mean, if there is such a thing, which I mean, maybe burpees for the first 3, but
I haven't done. I'm just trying to specific. I like the gym because I feel very kind of challenged and I can make fairly quick progress once I build that consistency, and that's kind of a positive feedback, and it just is motivating. I like doing a lot of stuff where you have to kind of stabilize yourself. So I've been doing focus a lot on posterior chain activation. So getting your glutes and hamstrings to fire, and a lot of those muscles that are just kind of neglected when you ride so much. So yeah, it's deadlifts and squats and a lot of hamstring curls on a gym ball, planks on a gym ball. Yeah. And for me, actually fun is it sounds crazy, but I like working on pull-ups. And part of the reason is my twin sister's a rock climber. So she's she's very, very strong. So she used to always make fun of me because I couldn't do a pull-up. But now, now I work on pull-ups, and that's kind of a,
That's great. That's cool to hear. Yeah, the gym work is stuff that no one wants to do, but it makes a big difference. That's awesome that I hear that's happening for you. Just, I guess, real quick, I want to go back to your bikes again. You said you rode a Mach 4, in the races, but is that the same bike that you ride out around the trails in Prescott? And
yeah, actually, I mean, the Mach 4 is such a versatile little bike. I train on it a lot at home in Prescott, but I also have a Mach 5.5, more of a trail bike, and that is a really just, that's an incredibly fun bike to ride. So you can't really go wrong. ride a little bit higher volume tires for training. So you can really change, like if you put a dropper post and like some 2.4 Maxxis tires on, like you can have a lot of fun on the Mach 4. Like it's a great bike.
And now we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll hear more from Chloe. Hi guys and gals, I wanted to let you know about some fun events coming up in 2019 from Rome Events. The ladies at Rome put on an incredible women's mountain bike festival 2 times a year called the Rome Bike Fest. All of their events, all 12 or more, including Rome retreats, are totally rad and in awesome mountain bike locations like Sedona, Arizona, Oak Ridge, Oregon, and Whitefish, Montana. But what's super exciting is in 2019, there will be co-ed Rome retreats. That's right, ladies. You can bring your gentleman friend along to the party as long as he behaves. So check out the calendar at thisisrome.com and start planning your 2019 adventures now.
So around Prescott, what trails do you like to ride out there? What are your favorite trails? Or maybe they're here in Sedona.
Yeah, Prescott, I love Wolverton Trail, which is kind of iconic for the area. We have a new area called Spence Basin.
Oh, a new area.
Yeah, relatively new. Ton of new trails built in there. Just a lot of just really fun single track with some rock features, and I mean, we have so much trail. It's not really fair.
And you have like this nice mild winter where you can
exactly. We
ride
can.
like where
That's
the rest
the other
of the
secret.
country
It's like
got
we
snow.
can ride year round. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Well, so I guess you said you get to have fun, but like most of it is training. How do you balance kind of all that training? How much training are you doing during the week, and like when do you have time to do other stuff? Like,
well, I mean, being a full-time racer and at elite level, it really is a full-time job. And on top of racing, I own and manage the Stance Pivot Pro Team presented by Maxxis. So there's 4 of us on the team, and that still is really the bulk of like my job and the work that I have to do. And that has actually provided some balance because it really means that the time on my bike is really, it's still like the best part of my day is like getting out and riding. So I still have work beyond just my own kind of personal racing and training goals. But yeah, I mean, balance is definitely a challenge at this level. And I kind of struggle with that, through different periods of the year. And, it's important to recognize when you need to take a break, when you need to just allow yourself an opportunity to do something different. The last few years, I try to get out and hike in the Grand Canyon, do a backpacking trip in the fall, and like I really enjoy hiking. I am known to sign up for like a 5K, like in the fall. I'm a really, really bad runner, but it's fun to mix it up and do something different, like be challenged by something new. And so, yeah.
that's awesome. I think that's great. So like kind of maybe almost humble yourself, like, oh, I'm so awesome. And I'm pretending to be you because I'm not saying this. Like, I'm so awesome at mountain biking. And then you go and you're like, oh, running or yoga or whatever it is. Like, oh, that's kind of hard. And so I have to like have this other challenge, which is like, I imagine kind of a mental challenge, right? Like, I'm sure you do mental training as part of your, somehow, maybe like subliminally, you're mentally training.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of, it's starting to be really important. And I haven't really dived into that too much, but I mean, absolutely kind of your state of mind and like, visualization. And I mean, that is such a key part of performance.
Well, I know like a lot of our listeners and readers, they're not like, I don't know that they have their goals set on like making the Olympics or anything, but like I know we all have to, set goals, even if it's just like New Year's resolutions or whatever, or we just want to be able to make it over some tricky section on the trail, or like maybe just 30 seconds faster on that Strava segment or something.
Yeah.
But so like, do you have maybe some tips for goal setting, not even necessarily for mountain biking, that maybe others could?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think about it in a pretty simple terms. Like, I ask myself 3 questions, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? That's a really important one, the why.
Oh, yes.
Why am I doing it? Why? And then also, how am I going to do it? And that how is where you can, like, kind of build the steps it might take. It doesn't have to be complicated, and but just, like, I think it's important to create some, like, attainable, measurable little things you can do. You know, and I know some telling other people or getting others on board can help keep you accountable as well.
In this next clip, Chloe shares her real-world example of how she set goals for the 2018 racing year. First, she identifies a broad, outcome-based goal and then defines the process goals, or the how part, that help her along the way.
I had to be more disciplined with my approach to goal setting. I was named to the U.S. national team, and like, I think it was December, they sent me this form and they're like, we need to know what all your goals are. So one of the outcome-based goals I set for myself is I wanted to finish top 15th overall in the World Cup. And again, I had top 15 finishes before, so that felt like an achievable thing for me, but I had lacked consistency. And the process-based goals underneath that, to get there that I set, there were 3 of them. And the first one had to do with just, this is kind of a technical thing, but it had to do with my chronic training load. What I wanted was this, like, number that represented what I was doing in the prior 6 weeks. It's an average of your training load each day. Seems kind of like a technical thing, but pretty much what it says is that you've been consistent with your training, which means you've been healthy enough to just ride your bike, and you've been planning ahead and making sure you're organizing your training around your travel and everything, because in the previous years I just struggled with consistency. So I wanted to have, and I set a concrete number that was measurable, something I could aim for, and I wanted to reach that CTL number. Second thing was sleep, measuring my sleep and recovery. I've also struggled with traveling, with just getting the sleep in I need with recovery. So I didn't really have a goal of, I want to sleep X amount each night. All I wanted to do was to track my sleep in some way. I just wanted to keep myself accountable to it. Like, hey, I slept 8 hours this night. I slept 4 hours this night. Whatever it was, I just wanted to track it. And the third thing was I wanted to dial in, like, my pre-ride. So when you guys, like, see the Red Bull coverage, like, the courses are pretty technical. And what I wanted to do was to be as efficient as possible with my time on the course, like, prior to race day. So, and that has a lot to do with just, like, dialing in your equipment. So, like, making sure that, you know, I traveled with both my Pivot Mach 4 and my Pivot Less to the World Cups. So I wanted to have a plan. Like, how am I deciding which bike to race on any given day? You know, I make sure to check in with Fox suspension at each race, like, before I head out, dial in my suspension numbers, like, take a note of that. I just wanted to be as efficient as possible with my pre-riding. And those were, like, the 3 things that I had set for myself. Because, you know, I guess we could really set, like, there's really 50 different things I could work on, but at the end of the day, like, you know, I could maybe do 3. And I did. In the end, I, like, met that outcome-based goal. I finished 13th in the World Cup series, which was really cool. And, you know, I kept track of my sleep. I think it helped a little bit with my sleep quality, just keeping accountable. But, yeah, so anyway, that was my process this year. And it probably changed a little bit next year. But
I have had injuries, you know, and I think each injury has almost been an opportunity to learn, to kind of, like, hit the reset button, start rebuilding, to try to come back stronger, a little bit more resilient. You know, I think that, like, that's how we build grittiness. It's, like, kind of those obstacles along the way, and just knowing that, you know, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's going to be another bike race. If I do these things and these steps to get back there, there's still possibilities and doors. And this year in particular, I've had a great season. I have suffered two mild concussions, and relatively close to each other, and that was a a different type of injury that I've had to kind of learn how to recover from.
Was that from mountain biking? Did
Yeah.
you crash?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
So, but it grand scheme of things, like crashing is a part of the sport. But every sport has certain risks of injury, and I think we learn a lot about ourselves and about our bodies when we have to endure and come back.
Well, cool. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk about your career, Chloe, and kind of give us some insight into training, what it's like to have to set goals and how long it takes to get to the Olympics or big goals like that. So
thank you, Leah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be looking out for you in 2019 in the World Cup Series.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Single Tracks podcast. To keep up with Chloe, follow her on Instagram at Chloe Woodruff and her mountain bike team at Stan's Pivot. As always, thank you for listening. And if you're new to the podcast, we have 200 more amazing episodes and interviews for you to binge on. And you can also sign up for our email list at singletracks.com, and we'll send you the latest from the podcast and weekly mountain bike news. Until next time, peace.